Last year, I felt a sudden, unshakable pang of N64 nostalgia. I hooked up my Nintendo 64 and jammed in the Snowboard Kids cartridge. But when I went to press the power button, I got this strange, weary feeling. The idea of completing every race with a gold trophy and grinding enough cash to buy all the boards again was a daunting prospect. I had outgrown the game. I saw it as childish, a remnant from a time in my life I find embarrassing to remember. 24 years after the game's release, I still find myself clinging onto a time when I didn't have to think about politics, war, or airborne diseases. Despite feeling all of these things, I still flipped the switch and sat back and played Snowboard Kids on hardware, just like I did when I was only 8 years old. And in that moment, I was transported back to my youth.
Oh.
The Nintendo 64 is a system I grew up with. The console holds a special place in my heart, and its software library has influenced and shaped my tastes to this day. The first game we had for the console was Snowboard Kids. Snowboard Kids is a comfy kart racer, masquerading as a snowboarding sim. The graphics, gameplay, and music appealed to the 8-year-old me, and the game pushed me into increasingly difficult races against unrelenting AI. I knew I had to do this episode right. That means that all the footage was captured from my PAL Nintendo 64. On SushiBites, I would normally emulate older games to get extremely clean and highly presentable footage. If playing on hardware, I would choose the North American version of a game where available for the increased frame rate. Playing this for fun, I'd have just run the game on my Japanese Nintendo 64, using this cheap EverDrive 64 clone. But, for the sake of looking back at where I came from, I decided to play the game in the same way I grew up with. This playthrough used a kart just like the one I would have played back in 1998. And this playthrough was for me.
Ready? Go!
Snowboard Kids landed on the Nintendo 64 in Japan in 1997, and in the West in 1998. It features a full single-player mode with battle races, minigames, and time trials, along with a multiplayer mode. When starting a new game, you can select from one of 5 characters from the get-go: Slash Kame, Nancy Neal, Jam Kuenemund, Linda Maltinier, and Tommy Parsi. Each character has stats associated with them. I recommend a nice balanced character like Slash if you're new to the game, but I'm a Linda lover myself. Look at that rack.
Oh, she's got stigmas like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, that's some great editing right there, I'm keeping that. Yeah, she's 11. 11 in naked mole rat years. The top option, Battle Race, is how you progress through the game. You are presented with a list of courses, each specified by name, with length and difficulty rating in the bottom right. A big image shows you an artist's rendition of the course, which clues you into the basic course hazards you can expect. Each course consists of a predetermined number of laps, ranging from 2 to 9 laps, and carries a base rank prize, which is the reward money for placing first, second, or third. While racing, in order to complete a lap of the course, you'll need to get into the ski lift and return to the top of the mountain. The ski lift has a slow barrier, which often leads to some fumbling as you try to get past the other racers. It can be quite funny in closely fought multiplayer races, as you and your friends stumble over each other to reach the barrier first. To tip the race in your favour, there are items and shots, but you need to be able to afford them first. You can collect coins that are just lying on the course, or receive reward money for pulling off tricks. This money can be spent in the item and shot shops placed around the course. Items usually provide a utility function, such as placing traps or stealing coins from other players, while shots are weapons you can shoot at opponents to briefly incapacitate them. The courses are quite detailed, and feature many shortcuts and secrets. A sly opening or hidden entrance can put you ahead, and branching paths present you with different hazards to safely traverse. These colourful locations tell their own stories through their environments, whether it be a nighttime ride through a theme park, mountain boarding through a sunny field, nonchalantly zipping through the ruins of an ancient civilization, or swooping through a Japanese village as sakura petals fall around you. Each of the game's locations are memorable, and take me back to my childhood whenever I see them. To start with, only 6 courses are available. When you get a gold trophy on the first 6 courses, the 7th will open. A gold on the 7th unlocks the 8th, and a gold on the 8th unlocks the 9th and final course. To beat the game, and to see the credits roll, you must get a gold trophy on all 9 courses with at least 1 character. Doing this will also unlock the 6th playable character, Shinobin. Doing all 9 courses in one sitting would be ill-advised. It took me multiple sittings, and an hour and a half in total, to get a gold on Quicksand Valley. Thankfully, the game has a save load function, utilising the Nintendo 64's controller pack accessory to store game progress. That's right, it's not called a mem pack, a memory pack, a memory card, or a memory anything. It is officially called the controller pack because it plugs into the back of the controller. Nintendo thought they were clever with that one. Snowboard Kids uses a whopping 121 pages of the controller pack, almost the full 256k capacity. This is because Snowboard Kids saves your cash, unlocks trophies, best times and scores for all of its playable characters within one save file. The game also supports the Rumble Pack, so players would need to remove their controller pack and insert the Rumble Pack when prompted if they wish to feel every painful bonk when they snowboard straight into a wall, or a shop when they can't afford anything. The novelty wears off fairly quickly. One thing that has always stuck with me is the Snowboard Kids soundtrack. It is essential listening. The trumpets of Quicksand Valley, the synths of Silver Mountain, the insane percussion. It drilled into my memory and stayed there, and I recalled every note as though I'd never stopped listening to it for all these years. Besides the battle races, which allow you to progress through the game, you can also compete in skill games. These minigames offer a palate cleanser that can earn you some extra spondula. Speed game has you blitzing to the finish line, collecting speed boosts. Shot game has you taking down snowmen with limited ammunition. And Trick game has you compete on an exclusive course to earn points. Besides the skill games, you can also take part in time trials to see how quickly you can complete each course. This is just for bragging rights. Money earned in races and skill games can be spent at the board shop, where you can purchase new boards with better stats, or repaint them for free from a list of designs. The secret character Shinobin cannot purchase boards. Instead, he has his own set of boards, each with their own stats. Snowboard Kids is somewhat fondly remembered online. I frequently see it on underrated N64 game lists, and mentioned whenever Nintendo 64 multiplayer experiences are brought up. Critics thought fondly of the game at the time, and it has aged well thanks to its presentation and timeless gameplay. Worth noting, Snowboard Kids saw several sequels. Snowboard Kids Plus, released for the PlayStation exclusively in Japan in 1999, is a highly enjoyable port. Whenever I show this game to fans of the original, they don't understand the appeal. The graphics look slightly worse because the PlayStation didn't have dedicated graphics hardware, textures warp, and sometimes there's a tiny bit more slowdown than before, but I have got to make a case for this version. It has a new story, new characters, voiced cutscenes, pre-rendered higher quality music, and some quality of life improvements. Character clothing customization too. It plays like a treat and very much deserves its name of Plus, but I know I can't convince everyone. Also in 1999, Snowboard Kids 2 carved through the snow onto the N64, where it skipped PAL territories except for, weirdly enough, Australia. It made major differences to the look and feel of the original game, and added many more modes and features. It would further stretch the concept of snowboarding, with levels set in space, or with the characters shrunk down to the size of rats. If neither of these interest you, Racjin would go on to make a realistic snowboarding simulation called Happy Happy Borders in Hokkaido Rusutsu Resort, released for the PlayStation 2 in Japan in the year 2000. While not necessarily a Snowboard Kids game, it was a snowboarding simulator developed and published by the same companies, so I think it deserves a mention. It also ambitiously sought to recreate a real-life ski resort, brave indeed for a very early PS2 title. Snowboard Kids would later receive a reboot for the Nintendo DS in 2005. The reboot was panned by both critics and series fans, failing to capture any of the magic of the original Snowboard Kids games. It's Snowboard Kids in name and name only. The localization would shoehorn in references to the first two games, trying its hardest to make the game seem relevant or related somehow, but it simply was not. A vapid offering, but Jack Frost is playable, the game's one and only pro. And sadly, that takes us up to now. Atlus, quite well known for their Shin Megami Tensei franchise and its sister series Persona, probably doesn't care much for Snowboard Kids nowadays. Why would they focus on an old IP like Snowboard Kids when Persona is their cash cow? And Shin Megami Tensei 5 has already sold 800,000 copies worldwide. The Atlus of today wouldn't even bother to release a game like Snowboard Kids, and even if they did, I doubt they would care enough to get the game localized for the West. Snowboard Kids was a gem. Back when Snowboard Kids came out for the N64, you would have had no idea who Atlus were unless you had your finger on the pulse of quirky Japanese games in the 90s. For many people, Snowboard Kids was the game that made Atlus a household name. In 2019, Fangamer ran a small series of Snowboard Kids merchandise, which made fans hopeful for any news on an upcoming game. But there hasn't been any real Snowboard Kids developments in what feels like millennia. The fans are stuck having to develop their own Snowboard Kids 3 in the Unreal Engine, a promising project that is only one cease and desist away in our overly litigious world. Whether or not the series will return in the future and go back to its roots is hard to say. A remake could be a nice idea, but I think we're past that. Racjin changed their name to Racjin in the year 2000 to make it easier for Japanese speakers to pronounce, and these days, they mostly perform development duties on Nintendo Switch and arcade games. I'm really not sure if any of the old Snowboard Kids developers are even at Racjin anymore, so any new game, even if it did happen, could be vastly different and only serve to disappoint fans even more. As for Atlus, now they are exclusively owned by Sega Sammy, their focus is on guaranteed supersellers, and we just gotta face it, there's no guarantee that a new Snowboard Kids game could generate the desired funds. I personally think this ship has sailed, but you know, life has a weird way of surprising us, so never say never. Even if there is no desire to remake Snowboard Kids, there's one way it could be playable today. Sega and Atlus, you need to add the game to Nintendo Switch Online. Get a hold of Racjin and take the necessary actions required to make this happen. You might just get the evidence you need to consider a new development. Game preservation itself is much easier than ever in this generation, with subscription services being quite popular. If ever, there was a time to re-release Snowboard Kids, then it was yesterday. And the second best time to release Snowboard Kids is now. This may be the end of the Snowboard Kids story, as far as SushiBites is concerned, but Racjin themselves are very interesting and worthy of further exploration. Whether it be their early games like the unfortunately titled Heaven's Gate, or their latest Switch games like Pretty Princess Party, their back catalogue is a large and extremely fascinating one. I'd like to put a pin in their games, and return to this topic in the future. You may be surprised to discover just what they've actually worked on. This has been SushiBites. Thanks for watching.